Is technology interfering with your most important relationships? On today's episode, Liz and I chat with Blake Snow, who has sworn off social media for the past 15 years and is happier than ever in his family. Starting with his Montana moment, where he disconnected from his devices, to creating healthy boundaries and using technology with intention, Blake shares all kinds of helpful tips for couples and parents to take back your most important relationships. Award-winning journalist Blake Snow writes for Fortune 500 companies, fancy publications, and 80% of America's leading travel media. In his spare time, he moonlights as a radio-quality recording artist, founded a nonprofit that promotes offline living, and is the best-selling author of Log Off and Measuring History. He enjoys cooking for his wife and 5 children, chauffeuring his kids to activities, and seeing the world. High energy is his superpower, made possible by his mother's DNA and a full night's sleep. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey friends, welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Dave here at Utah State University alongside Dr. Liz Hale, our licensed clinical psychologist and family therapist. We are aiming to bring you the best we have in research and resources, along with tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. Today, so stinking excited to have our guest today. We're tackling technology, Liz. We know today we live in a different age when all kinds of technology can interfere in relationships, marriages, parents and kids. You see it all the time, everywhere you go. So we're welcoming our guest today is Blake Snow. Blake, thanks for joining us today.
Liz, Dave, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now, if you just kind of big picture, Blake, if you don't mind starting out, just sharing a little bit about how you jumped into this area. You've got all kinds of awesome stuff that you've done in the past. I already see that we're both former BYU Cougars. We both have snowboarded, involved in sports, love the outdoors. So we're pretty much cousins already, Blake. It feels like. And so
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your journey.
So, this for me, this kind of this idea of logging off, it started where I used to be a workaholic, go figure, like many, early 20 somethings, seeking their fortunes. That was me. I was starting a family, starting a new career. And, back then, this is pre-smartphones. There was a little device that we no longer use. It's called BlackBerry. And that was like the first kind of device that kept in our pockets that could really attach us to work, to FOMO, what's going on elsewhere. And so I was addicted to that for many years. And I would have what I would call these little affairs with my BlackBerry. I'd be sitting with dinner with my wife, or be out and about, and I'd like sneak in and, have this little, affair with this device that allowed me to stay connected to work for unhealthy amounts of time. So I did that. And iPhone came, and it probably sent that situation even raging. And I took this 2-week vacation in the nether parts of Montana that was no internet, and I was really anxious about this. I think I did the math. It was several years without breaking offline for a single day. I kid you not. So I had a problem, and I was really anxious about this trip. And anyway, long story short, it changed me. We were in this amazing cabin with a family and some friends. And I just decided I want this every day of my life. I don't want to do what I was doing. So I wrote about it. I called it my Montana moment. And that was the impetus for my book, Log Off, where researching how these screens, how social media, how bottomless technology is really affecting our relationships, our health, our productivity, our creativity, which is what I think humanity is best at. And so that was about 15 years ago. And that set me on this course of getting off social media, abandoning workaholic ways, and just finding what I feel like is a very fulfilling, productive, enriched life that I'm just so grateful for. So that's how I got, here. I think that's key, Dave, to like doing cool things. You have to create, you have to limit your distractions. So I'm just out to try to spread the good news of, I think, that message through my nonprofit and the book. And so happy to talk more to you about it today.
Yeah, thank you. Wow.
Man, it makes me want my own Montana moment. Dave and Blake, and yet, for the most part, Dave, your life revolves around technology, right? Writing, producing, making records, and you would even call yourself a technology critic. Tell us a little bit more about that and your take on technology these days and how it can create disconnection in marriage and family connections.
Yeah. So, I have to stress, I'm not anti-technology, but I do question it. So I believe technology is guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to, how we do things in a democracy, which I totally support. So you've got these companies, these technology companies that are like, hey, use our stuff. It's great. It's the latest, greatest stuff. You need to use it. And they're doing that with the, bottom line of making money off you and your data and to use you really in many ways. Yes, there's also a service being provided sometimes, but I think that's how I approach technology. So when some new technology comes out and says, hey, use this, it's the latest, greatest, I just say, no, you have to prove to me, that you actually can add value. I'm not going to use you. It's the same thing with a couple of years ago, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, came out. And this is a position I've been endorsing for years, where you should turn off all your audible alerts and only pick up your phone when you need to use it, not when your phone's like, hey, give me your attention. I'm a big advocate of that. And so Tim Cook came out a couple of years ago and said that he does the same. He doesn't use the iPhone in the default way, which was just like, everyone should be doing that, especially the CEO of this. So, the smart people of Silicon Valley know what's going on. They really do. And they know, though, however, that the mainstream users are capable. They're shipping devices in ways that it's maximizing their gain and their eyeballs and advertising at society's detriment. So, yeah, that's the approach I take with technology. It's guilty until proven innocent. You need to be very thoughtful and careful about what you let in your life, bring in your life, what you let interrupt your life. And smartphones and technology and social media are so good at doing that. And it just disrupts your productivity, our relationships. It's not good. If we allow it to be, if we abuse it, which so many people do.
That's well said. So we need to control it instead of it controlling us. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
exactly.
it.
Yeah, I love that. I even call it like it's the sliding versus deciding. We kind of just slide into it. We don't even know we picked it up 17 times. Oh, here's a little note. Oh, Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it is, over and over and over without realizing it. You mentioned it can affect our relationships here on the podcast. Stronger Marriage Connection, we're all about those things that can bring us closer together and strengthening our marriage connection, as well as those things that can interfere and get in the way. How have you seen it? I'm curious. You mentioned a little bit about kind of that initial moment. How do you kind of maintain that in your own marriage with your kids, your relationships? Been able to strike that balance, because the idea is like, oh yeah, this sounds great, and listeners are like, yeah, I need to put that down more. And then tonight when they're in bed, they both pull out their phones, and they're just like, they can't put this down. Ideas? What have you done?
Yeah, lots of ideas. First, just setting boundaries. That's one. Maybe even before that is treating your spouse and kids and family like accountability partners. Like, this is how we want to do it. So, for example, in our house, we don't take phones to the bedroom ever. Period. That doesn't happen. We talk to each other about, hey, they're so powerful. Like, while I say I have a really great relationship with my phone and the internet over the last 15 years, things still creep up. I'll give you an example. Just a few years ago, I had the YouTube app, and I was spending way too much time watching videos. And so that became a distraction where I said, okay, this isn't working for me anymore. Delete. I'm not using that anymore. If I got to watch something on YouTube, I'll just do it the manual, hard way of pulling up a browser, entering it in, and then going to check something out. So making technology harder to use and with those boundaries is one way. Another rule, we don't give our kids smartphones until they're 15. And even then it's very neutered. We don't allow social media. It's a very limited phone set. Boundaries. It is hard. It's hard for everyone. I mean, we were just at an event for our nonprofit, Live Heads Up, and we were talking to the community, and we asked this one gentleman, "Hey, do you think you might have a phone problem?" And he said, "No, I'm probably on it about an hour a day." And I just jokingly said, "Well, can we check it? Because there's an easy way to check on your iPhone or your Android the usage." So I said, "Hey, let's swipe left on your phone." He did. It was 8 hours that this man was on his phone. So he didn't even know how much time he spent. And he just had that look like, wow, I had no idea. And so it's very deceiving. Like you said, Dave, it happens. It can happen and affect all of us. So setting boundaries, accountability partners, turning off audible alerts or visual alerts unless they come from your spouse and children, and maybe boss if you've got it. But even your boss, don't let your boss get in your life after 5 o'clock or on the weekend. That's a bad boss. You don't want that kind of boss unless that's your type of job. I mean, I know there's some jobs where that there is some bleed through, but if that's the case, you need to create and set those boundaries and be very selfish with your time and your relationships in terms of what you let in your life. It's kind of like the analogy of putting on your own oxygen mask on first in the airplane. You really have to take care of yourself. I think to be a good human, to be a good father, a mother, a spouse, child, daughter. It's just really important to do that.
I so admire this whole idea. So no smartphones until the age of 15. Wow.
That's right. It sounds crazy, but I mean, Liz, there are, again, back to Silicon Valley. Most people in Silicon Valley that invent these things have some of the strictest household rules with their own children because they know what's going on. I'm not making this up. Like the research is out there. So it really is kind of playing on the masses while people in the know are like, I don't want to limit my creativity. And that's what smartphones and social media can do. It just can suck you in. It can make you feel like you're having meaningful relationships when you're not. Like this is a meaningful encounter, a face-to-face encounter. Even though we're using technology to do it, it's face-to-face, it's real time. We're meeting each other. We can check body language. Social media it's kind of the aspartame of digital relationships where it's not satisfying the need, I think, to socialize.
Mm-hmm. So what, do your kids get a flip phone then? Or just nothing before the age of 15?
No, they go old school. It's pretty impressive. I'm really pleased with how it works out. But I think it takes some trust on the parents. I think a lot of it is the parents are like, well, I can't let my 12-year-old out in this world without a leash so that I can contact them at any time. I think it probably goes most to the parents and their discomfort.
It's anxiety a little, yeah.
Exactly. So it's more for the parents. And in many ways, I think parents use and abuse smartphones and social media technology in many ways more than some younger generations. They kind of treat it like a grown-up pacifier. You see adults in social situations like, I got to get my pacifier, I got to get my passy because I'm uncomfortable here. So in many ways, I think it goes both ways. There's problems both with younger generations and older, but there's a lot of research saying that, older generations that didn't grow up kind of with this stuff in their, in their hands, like our younger generations did, really struggle without it.
What else, Blake, do you recommend that couples do to prevent technology from really interfering with quality time together? Any other thoughts?
I mean, another thing is like, we just don't let it at the table. I think whatever you want to, whatever's not working for you. I mean, that's one of my favorite questions. I learned this from therapy. Liz, I know you're a therapist. I love that. I'm a big advocate of, marriage counseling, and I've been to therapy twice, and it's just so empowering. So I love that whole concept of, is this working for you? And I think most people know, like, my phone doesn't work for me. Social media isn't working for me if I really answer that question. And so I like to answer, that's what I would advise, couples or families to do is like, is this really working for you? And if not, what kind of changes do you want to make? Is it a problem at the dinner table? Don't let those things at the dinner table, just don't bring them there. Another one, we don't let our children have, the laptops up in their room. And I know it sounds strict and crazy, but I mean, if you met my kids, they're really good kids, and I think that's a big reason is that we're letting them experience this world in a way that I think it was meant to be experienced. And again, I'm not anti-phone. It's just they're so problematic if we abuse them in their default setting that it's just something that you really have to be mindful of. I mean, you both have seen it. Like, we live in a society that is increasing, living heads down. Can you imagine if I was like this throughout this whole podcast? That would be very sad, and we're to that point where a lot of us have problems. I think the last report that I read is it's something like half of America, struggles, has some problems with their phone, either moderate or extreme phone abuse. And it's just a big problem, that I'm hoping, that I think I'm trying to be a part of the solution. Sometimes I feel like it's an uphill battle because I just, how can we compete with these smart, I mean, they have the smartest mathematicians and scientists in Silicon Valley designing these things. I'm not kidding. They used to work on rockets. Now they're working on, how to keep us on our phones. It's an uphill battle, but I think it's one worth fighting for.
Wow. From rockets to human beings, right? They're smart. Gosh.
Yeah. We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in. You say it takes this mindfulness, but man, it's so difficult, challenging, because we get into these habits, whether it's the wake up and the first thing I see, so I just scroll for a half hour scroll, and I'm, looking, I want to be entertained, or I have my favorite influencers. What's your take? I mean, this is kind of like a crazy hot topic, and I might get easily roasted here, Blake, for kind of not bashing on influencers, but it feels like that they're almost taking over so much of our attention. I'm looking and now they're at the beach. Look at what they're eating. Look at the stroller they just bought. Look at this, all the products they're selling. It feels like the advertising has now gone to influencers. What's your take on that?
I mean, it's tough. Like I probably do take some flack for. I believe social media is a net negative on humanity. I believe it can work in like professional social media accounts, like advertising. I know a lot goes on there, but in terms of like individual social media accounts, I don't think they're helping us create healthy relationships, or even just picking up your phone first. I don't pick up my phone until at least a couple hours when I wake up. And so I think my take, Dave, is to try to not let it in your life. And again, try to only let things in your life that add meaning and value or excite you. So if you do have an influencer that is doing really great work, say, for example, Liz on therapy and inspiring, comments and talk, that would be a great, I think, option for someone to consume. But the thing about social media is that those algorithms recommend something else, and then you're like, what am I doing? I spent 2 hours doing that. Well, how did I get here? And so it's just, you have to be very, very careful if that's something you're gonna dabble in, because dabbling it's almost not. I mean, you don't really find people say, oh, I'm just dabbling in social media. It doesn't really work like that, because again, it's bottomless. The internet is bottomless. Social media is bottomless, and that's the problem. Like, we've never had that happen before. I talk about this in my book, Log Off. I call it the king complex, where for the first time in humanity, we can live a simulated life. I mean, there's billions of hours of YouTube videos and social media videos every second. And so if you kind of go down that rabbit hole, there's no end in sight. And it just sends our dopamine raging in terms of we just seek and seek and seek. And that's why we just end up, well, how did I spend so much time doing this? And so it's just, I don't know if I answered your question, Dave, but that's I think part of the answer in terms of trying to put a boundary and a cap on that. Otherwise, in our relationships or family, we live what I call alone together, where it's a missed opportunity to communicate, to discuss, to have interactions because we're just all alone with our heads down, not engaging with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, man. The boundaries, I like it. I mean, you mentioned, and I'm a big fan of this as well, in beds, tables, dinner, these are places for a connection, like the most intimate connection in our life. These discussions that we have, around the table, and you go out to eat and you just see people are pulling out their phones, and instead of talking, engaging and connecting. So it is this big distraction. I'm curious your take on, because it can be such a hot topic in couple relationships, honestly, how it's brought up. It's like, honey, get off your dang phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No.
Ooh.
And that used to be the case with me and my wife, Dave, when I had some really unhealthy relationships with it. It was a strain. And I mean, you both know that, like, healthy relationships is all about communication. And if there is a device that can pull you out of communicating or even engaging someone, that's even worse. And so I think that would be my take, that, we have to be so cautious with social media and cell phones, because it further complicates communication between families and spouses. And that's the number one cause of all, our marital strife and familiar strife is the lack of communication or sharing honest feelings with each other. So it's very problematic to have that in the mix as well when we're trying to have and foster healthy relationships.
It's very much like having a third party, this phone. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally.
Between us.
Yeah.
An infidelity of sorts.
And that's why I used, I said that it was like an affair. You really can't have an affair with your device at the detriment of your spouse or your child, or your coworker, or a good friend even. I mean, I've heard of people losing friend. My sister just told me about, she has a friend that has a problem with their phone. And she recently said, I'm not going to spend time with this person anymore because they can't give me the attention and connection we originally had, and I sought out. And so yeah, it is like a third party disrupting our relationships.
I would say even at all levels, when you say Blake, for example, our son, just over this last weekend, our son, he's 16 years old, and he ran into a store to grab something. And he says, and he came back and he told us this story. He says, man, that's the worst. I'm never going to do this when I get older. He saw a grandparent and what the grandchild looked like to him at the store. And the child's like, oh, look at this, or can I get one of these? And the grandparent for 20, 30 seconds was on the phone scrolling. It's like, okay, didn't even look up, acknowledged the grandchild.
Yeah.
My son had rubbed him the wrong way. And he says, that just ticked me off, Dad. I'm like, here's the child trying to connect. So at all, right? From young to couples to grandparents, this is really a struggle for everybody.
It is. It's great that your son noticed that. Like, and to me, I think he's going to be part of the change. And I'm really excited for this new generation. Like, I know a lot of people, especially our age, we always try to bemoan the younger generations as doing things differently. But I think there is a lot of evidence suggesting that they are breaking away, perhaps sometimes at better rates than we are, than older generations. So I think I applaud your son for recognizing that and not wanting to repeat that mistake, because it is a mistake. What a missed opportunity for that grandparent and that grandchild, and the grandchild seeking attention. And I'm sure that grandparent didn't mean to do it. Again, I don't think he meant, hey, I'm going to go to the store, ignore my grandchild so I can play this game or see what's going on elsewhere in the world on my social feed. He never intended, or she never intended that. But that's the power of these things, that if we just let them work by default as they're designed to do, that's what we get by not putting them in their rightful place in our lives.
Yeah. What do you say, Blake, to maybe some skeptics? I've done some research actually on my own, Blake, and it's showing between over 80% believes that technoference is a problem today when technology interferes with relationships. Even a third are saying it interferes with their sexual relationship. So what do you say to some skeptics that are saying, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not that big a deal. But if it's a big deal for like one partner in that relationship, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, oh, totally. And I would just, again, what I said earlier, that's very common in therapy is like, how's it working for you? I think deep down, people, they might delude themselves and say, oh, it's working great. And then I'd say, great, I'm glad that it's working for you. But I think that the burden of proof is on them to show, look, this is how, like, I'm creating more in life. I have more in-person relationships than ever before, because there's a lot of research saying that social media limits and reduces in-person encounters, which is, I think, where a real relationship takes place. And so the burden of proof is on them to prove that, hey, I'm happy. My relationships are rich. This isn't a problem. And I would say more power to you. But most of the research I'm encountering is that this is a problem. I think most people know it, even if they're not willing to admit it. Just like that good gentleman I talked to last week, where he didn't even know it was a problem. But 8 hours a day on a phone is very problematic for that gentleman's fulfillment, creativity, and relationships. And it's turning us into a nation, a society of even more consumption than we were before. I mean, we're known for being a consumer economy, but this is consuming our attention at levels that I feel like it's worrisome in terms of what it's doing to our creativity. And that worries me. It really does.
Yeah. What's your take on, you mentioned your Montana moment. Do you suggest couples have like a phone fast for 24 hours?
Yes. No. Yes. I think.
What do you recommend?
Great question, Dave. Yes, I do. I mean, another thing that we do in our house is Screenless Sunday. We're a religious family. That's a sacred day. We just don't get on it that day, and it's been great. And we've notified close friends and family, like, hey, we're not on this, and people work around that. They if it's an emergency, give us a call. But we're not on that. So I do believe in fasts. We've done week-long fasts from phones and technology. And I think it's just a really good thing about kind of resetting and re-jolting. It allows you to decide, what do you want to let back into your life? Boundaries on time, like when, knowing beforehand when you're going to pick it up as a family, as a couple, as an individual, how are you going to use it? What apps you're going to let on your phone? I think it's really important to like constantly delete apps that you're no longer using, or they're tempting you, or that aren't benefiting you. So don't just let all these apps, fill up your phone and then vie for your attention and beep and buzz at you and say, hey, pick me up. I want your attention so my owner can make money off your eyeballs. You need to just constantly keep that in check. So again, guilty until proven innocent. Don't add anything unless you're certain that like, this could be a really beneficial, tool in my life. Those are just a few ideas, but yeah, definitely fasting is a great way. But more than that, Dave, I would even say like many of us, if you're so caught in, if your life is so wrapped up in your phone, we forget the offline things that we love doing, the offline hobbies and passions and pursuits and creative pursuits. So many times when I'm talking to people, it's helping them. You can't just say, all right, I'm going to get off my phone, which is how I've been distracting myself for a long time. And I'm just going to magically go outdoors and pick up a hobby that maybe I haven't picked up in years, or I haven't even started. That can be a tough jump for someone. It sounds silly, but it really can. If how you spend your time is on your phone, going kayaking or hiking might be intimidating to you. So I like to spend time too. Like, what are you going to replace your heads up life with? You're going from a heads down to heads up life. What are you going to replace it with offline? What things excite you? What do you want to do again? So you have to have those meaningful replacements of these distractions, or how you're spending time. Otherwise, I think people, they use it as that adult pacifier again. We're like, oh, I don't know what to do offline. Let me just go back to my phone. So it's kind of a vicious cycle where if you don't replace it with good things, you'll just kind of naturally gravitate back towards it.
Yeah.
So I've got this burning question, Blake. So if kids don't have a smartphone up to the age of 15, I think many parents are going to wonder about this. How do they contact you if they need a ride? Do they use their friend's smartphone? Do they call from the school? What are some of your
that is. I mean, so we are benefiting off the village a little bit, but it is, they use the school. They'll use, maybe a friend sometime, or we'll call the parents. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how sustainable it is, but it is beneficial. But I do think that there's ways we can work around. All three of us did it, even pre-cell phone. humans will find a way to get in touch. And so I think I definitely think it's possible, but I get what you're saying, Liz, and I
Oh, I
appreciate that.
love this. I wasn't challenging. I was just saying, what encouragement how can we tell parents this is really doable? Because I am such a fan of waiting until a child is older. I heard it once said that a smartphone is kind of like a loaded gun in a child's hand. They're just not ready for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so, yeah. So, but yeah, using a lot of the child's phones. I mean, because a lot of our kids don't have, their friends don't even have phones, so they have to use their parents' phone to call because no one has landlines anymore. So that is one.
I know that's so true, isn't it? I'm hanging on to my landline.
Are you? Oh, good for you.
I am, yeah. Blake, this has been so insightful. We want our listeners and viewers to be able to find you. So please tell us where are the resources that you offer in this very important topic.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So you can find my book, Log Off: How to Stay Connected After Disconnecting by Blake Snow on Amazon or Audible. So that's kind of it's a short, really easy read. It's packed full with a lot of good information for couples, for families, for individuals. So that's a great starting point. You could just Google me too, Blake Snow. That'll bring you to my website, blakesnow.com, where there's a lot of good resources. And then my nonprofit is livingheadsup.org, which we're just starting up. It's super exciting, doing events for the community to help bring awareness to this very special topic, helping people, being hopefully a solution to the problem that we need to live heads up. We need to stay off our screens, and there needs to be some awareness and advocacy on that. So that's what we're doing. And reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to help as much as I can. If anyone's struggling or having any issues, I just wanted to share one story, Liz and Dave, about I still get emails from people all over the world that have read my book, and two in particular, just over the last couple of years. There's one, a dentist from Bogota, Colombia, emailed me and thanked me for the book and just for kind of jolting him out of his technology addiction. It was so gratifying to think that there's a dentist somewhere in Colombia that is really finding newfound fulfillment and enjoyment of life by getting off the screen and putting his technology in place. And then a young professional worker from Chicago. We were just talking about Chicago before recording this show, where she's 26. She works in technology. She wrongfully thought that she had to be connected all the time to make herself a good worker, but she was burnt out, read the book, and just wrote in to tell me kind of how her life has changed. And it's so gratifying to see people do this. So for me, it's all worth it if one other human being can lift their head up and get off this abusive relationship with their phone. And so that's what I'm all about. And if a couple can do this together, or a family can do it, it really makes it all worth it. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for anyone that's interested in learning more. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, this has been awesome. Hey, before we let you go, Blake, we like to ask our guests a couple questions. The first one is this: what do you think is the key to a stronger marriage connection these days?
Communication and specifically feelings. We are feeling creatures. So lead with your feelings. If you're feeling alone, tell your spouse that, or your family. If you're feeling scared, say that. And then that can lead into some really great communication and discussion. And so I think that, to me, that's blessed my life so much. And it's a work in progress. It's very hard to do. Sometimes we're not even aware of what we're feeling. And so if we don't lead with that feeling, it's hard to have a really good communication. So I think that's the most important thing that a relationship, a couple, a family can do, is to lead with their feelings and validate one another's feelings before we go to problem solve or work through them. We are feeling creatures. And so to me, that is the key to having successful relationships.
Yeah, love that. Haim Ginott, a great researcher, family scholar, once said that birds fly, fish swim, and people feel. That's what makes us people is that we feel. We have these emotions. So I totally resonate with that. Hey, our second question is this: what's your takeaway of the day? If you have a message you want our listeners to remember, what would that be?
You can do this. And I mean that generally. Like, if you don't like what's going on with your life on your phone and social media, you can make changes. You can do hard things like look back at all this incredible stuff that humanity, that Team Human has done for centuries, and you're a part of that. And you can do something. It might seem challenging, or even with your relationship, but you're capable of great things. And I know and think and believe strongly that each of us have the capacity to change and make changes in our life in a way that works for us and excites us and brings us towards greater health and fulfillment. So you can do this. That's my biggest takeaway.
Oh, love it. Love it, Blake. Liz, what about you? What's your takeaway of the day?
Yeah, I'm thinking of all kinds of things, all kinds of changes I'd like to make because, you know, if I don't control IT is going to control me, info technology. And I'm even just thinking, you know, on date night, I always want my phone with me to clip pictures of Ben and I. A dear friend of mine once said, who lost her husband, she goes, Liz, I'm so glad I took pictures on date night. So I make the excuse to have my phone there, but it is a distraction. So I'm thinking of investing in a small camera, and I'm thinking of going back to hard copy scriptures because, again, I take my phone to church. Why? Because scriptures are on there, but it's a distraction. So anyway, all kinds of things are running through my mind, Blake, according to this interview.
I'm glad, Liz. It's great to hear. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Dave, what about you? What's been your biggest takeaway from our interview today with Blake Snow?
Yeah, this has been awesome, Blake. Thanks for what you're doing at your foundation. Man, we need to have you come up here to Logan and talk with the schools in the city. So
I'd love to.
I'll be reaching out here. I think my takeaway is the replacement. You know, we've got to take back our time, take back our family, our activities, or put this instead of a half hour in the morning. I'm just going to go and scroll. Maybe going for a walk. Even better, phone a friend. Check in, use your technology. I call it text 2 before 10, Blake. Text 2 people before 10 a.m. Just a text of gratitude, love. Hey, I'm checking in. Hey, we should do lunch sometime.
I love it.
We gotta get into that habit of using it for good. I too, I'm not anti-technology, but I totally agree that technoference can take over a relationship without you even knowing it, without even realizing it, and all of a sudden you've drifted down the river and you're miles apart and don't even realize it. So, man, sure appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your message. Thanks for your book. Thanks for what you're doing. We'll put all that in our show notes, friends, so you can check out that. We'll put links to the book as well. But man, Blake, thanks again for taking time to join us today.
Dave, Liz, thank you both. Thanks for the work you're doing. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, that does it for now. Friends, thanks for joining us this time. We'll see you next time on another episode of Stronger Marriage Connection podcast.
And remember, it's small things often that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.